if you're considering buying a home, you might be wondering if this is a good time to take the plunge, or how do you even define a good time when it comes to today's market condition. On the Money Show today, we get your confusion on this cleared, and we will analyze what is the right time for you to financially buy a house. Let's welcome on board Harsh Roongta, founder of Fee Only Investment Advisor LLP. Harsh, good evening and welcome to the show. We all dream of having our own place, our own investment, which is also the home that they want to live in. But then how do you analyze and how do you understand that you are really ready to buy a home, or maybe the first investment that you've thought about your entire life, which is to buy a house for yourself? You are totally ready for it financially, emotionally, and obviously by financially, it's just not the buying part, it's also the repaying part that you need to get sorted with. So what is that particular time in your life, or that feeling in your life, when you feel confident to do this?
So I think to be able to answer that, the key point that we should keep in mind that, buying your own home, the home that you stay in, imparts a sense of security. You feel secure, you feel stable when you buy your own home. And that feeling of stability and security has an economic value, which all these rent versus buy calculators really do not take into account, because it is very difficult to estimate that value. It is also a social signaling tool. You're signaling to the rest of the society that, see, I not only have the amount for the down payment, but I am also confident of my prospects, income earning prospects in the future. And that is why I have taken a long-term loan. It's a very important social signaling tool. In fact, families that don't own their own home might have difficulty in the Indian setup, for their children getting married, etc. So it's a very important social signaling tool. But the issue with the social signaling tool, or using buying a home as a social signaling tool, is that security should be real. That sense of security should be real. And when is that sense of security real? Obviously, when you have the money for the down payment, such that you can make the down payment enough so that the EMI on the loan should not exceed 35% of your regular monthly income. When that is there, at least you feel secure that the ability to repay is also there. And when I say 35%, that includes all loans. So if you have already a car loan, that further brings down the amount of home loan that you can get, or any other loan if you have. So very clearly, buying your own home makes sense. The social signal has a lot of strength, provided, as I said, you have enough down payment, and you just need to take enough loan, including all loans, such that the EMI does not exceed 35%. One other important
I want to stress on. So one thing I want to stress on, and which you also just mentioned, the social signaling part, because what happens is a lot of times, and we all are conditioned that way also, maybe being in India, that's a very major part of our upbringing also, that having your own house, having a house on your name that you've bought, it signifies, or it denotes financial independence or financial freedom. What is the backdrop of this thought, and why now this particular thing needs to change?
So I think we must hark back. I mean, this is not an era that people have seen, that very few people owned houses. I'm talking of the 60s or the 70s or the 80s. The era of owning your own house, middle classes owning their own house. And earlier in the 70s, 80s, and even maybe till the beginning of 90s, even when people bought the house, they actually bought it late in their lives. By the time they were 50, 55, home loans were not so easily available. So it is the arrival of home loan credit with the pioneering HDFC, and then a lot of other banks joining them. Uh, that has allowed this to become a movement. So earlier, it used to be a big sort of announcement of arrival in life that heralded the buying of a house. And I think that continues to be part of our social setup. It will take time to change. As today's young generation, when they grow up, they may not have the same feelings. And when the second generation grows up, those who have been born just now, maybe 20 years from now, it will stop being as significant a social signal as it is today. Okay, and today it is less of a social signal than it was just 15 years ago. So I think it's a continuum that is changing. Just to have one more point on the affordability and the sense of security, I think you must be having some outlook on how long you are going to be staying in the city where you are buying the home. Because if you the transaction costs on buying are very high, stamp duties are high, registration costs are high, brokerages are high, so all that adds up to about 7-8%, for which no value is available when you sell. So unless you are committed to the city for 5 years at least, I don't think you should buy a home. And the second big important factor is that social signaling works only if you stay in a home. So basically, buy a home in an area that you would really want to live in. Don't just people buy a home in a faraway, far-flung location. I'm talking, say, Bombay, you buy it on the outskirts and then stay on rent, near your office, etc. I think that has a much weaker social signaling. It does not have, in fact, any social signaling value at all. So I think understanding this could sort of give a rough idea as to when you should buy, when you should feel secure enough. And if you do not give value to the social signaling, then take a decision basis, pure economic considerations alone.
Along with this, okay, these are the factors that you might want to consider before taking a home loan and before taking this entire dream of yours into reality. But then, even the repayment part needs to be decided before you want to go for this. That is also crucial, because a lot of time what people do is that they already have too many financial liabilities or responsibilities, and on top of that, just for the social signaling or the status that they want to maintain the society, they just want to buy a house of their own. So is it very important to plan your finances? I mean, obviously that's the most crucial aspect of taking such a huge loan which you want to pay off for like more than 20 years maybe. But then the repayment part also needs to get activated from the time you're giving your first installment.
Oh, absolutely. So as I said, if the repayment on a normal basis, okay, most people end up prepaying home loans, but even on a normal basis, you should be that total EMI, whether of the home loan or any other loan you have, should not exceed 35%. Also, after you make the down payment, maybe you will have left with no assets at all. And maybe that's not such a good thing. But even if you are okay with no assets, you should have at least enough assets for your 6 months expense, including the EMI. So that if there is a loss of job or there is a downturn in the business or the practice that you are doing, you will still have the ability or to repay the home loan. Please remember, there is no worse social signaling than your house being repossessed. Okay, that is the worst possible form of social signaling. In fact, it's a huge social signal of distress, and you cannot avoid showing it. So if you will remember, jewelry, people don't sell because that's considered, a signal of distress. But that you can do secretly. Nobody else will come to know. Whereas if your house is repossessed because you can't pay a loan, or you have to sell it yourself and then go and stay in a smaller house, that clearly is a signal of distress. So one should think about that if one values social signals.
All right. Now, talking about people who want to buy second homes, I mean, would you recommend that? I mean, obviously, if one feels financially stable to go for this decision, they should, if they can. But again, social signaling for your second home or maybe having a property just for investment, does it make sense?
So I think investments are completely different. I
Totally.
don't think investments also might have social signaling. It's not that it will not have, but I doubt people take second homes for social signaling unless they plan for it. I mean, so there are big businessmen who will take a farmhouse outside. They will invite, uh, government officers, bureaucrats, their influential friends, etc. Uh, that obviously has a social signaling value. But otherwise, the second home is basically a luxury. So if your budget allows for it, take it. Taking a second home on a loan, I would not really favor that. It is a luxury. And obviously, it is something that you ought to do if you can afford to do it. Uh, I would be hesitant to consider a loan, to recommend taking a loan to buy a second home.
That will be all. Thank you so much, Harsh, for being on the show and helping our viewers in helping them understand as to when is the right time for them to go for their first home. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Kavita.
We move on.